still shows a look of shock on his face at the sight of this amazing room. He looks around the place, drooling over the designer seats and expensive bottles. Wine lined up on the shelves. It's hard for him to not admire this place, and he comments on how they've slathered it with money, but soon enough our hero is brought back to reality when the pointy end of a cane is brought close to his neck. He looks over at the lady holding the cane, noticing that she's blind. He assumes that all the expensive things in the house are probably of no use to her, since she can't even see them. It seems her loyal dog doesn't like Peter very much, as it immediately starts barking at him with hostility. Hearing Peter's voice, a small smile appears on the blind woman's face, and she concludes that she'd soon have to get rid of a corpse for the first time in a while. Miss Rich and Blind uses her enhanced sense of smell to practically sniff out Peter's biometrics. She can immediately tell that he is young and that he's not one of the beggars around. For some weird reason, she can even tell that he exudes killing intent rather than a desire to rob her. Clearly, she isn't the average weak blind lady, and she proves it when she swings her cane at Peter, suspecting that he was sent by the Glory Club. She's even more accurate than most people with normal sight, but as you'd expect, Peter is just too quick for her, so she keeps missing. She swings her cane again and again, but my man just dodges each attack with great skill and agility. It doesn't even look like he's putting any effort. By the time this wealthy Miss Matt Murdoch is done swinging her cane, almost all the expensive furniture in the apartment has been damaged, but the target remains unscathed. She tells Peter that he is slippery like a rat, but he slips and hits his back on the wall. Hearing the thud, she locks her target and uses his mistake to her advantage while telling him to be careful not to damage her expensive wallpaper. With great speed, she throws the cane at Peter like an Olympic javelin athlete, but once again he dodges it gracefully. The cane enters the wall beside him, and Peter starts to wonder if the lady is really blind. After attempting to impale him, she lunges at him and prepares to land a devastating kick. She also taunts him for being confused that she's such a good fighter even though she's blind. Unfortunately for her, Peter seems to have had enough, so he catches her midair and grabs her arm and leg before throwing her in anime style. The speed of the skill is so great that it sends her designer slippers and glasses flying. She might be blind, but the look in her eyes when she is slammed on the couch shows that she never expected such an insane power move. However, it looks like she also has some trick up her sleeve. She pulls out a knife and holds it against Peter's face while he pins her to the couch. She admits that she's surprised someone of his caliber would still be a member of the Glory Club that now operates. She taunts him, suggesting that she didn't sense any killing intent, and points out how dirty he would feel if he murdered her when she's a disabled person. Even though his morals are probably against such acts, she tells him that he doesn't have a choice since their work only ends when they kill a person. There's a brief pause, and then she suddenly gives her dog Alexander Macking to go ahead to attack Peter without skipping a beat. The blinged out dog hurls itself at Peter, ready to sink all of its razor-sharp teeth into his body. However, something very unexpected happens when Peter suddenly tames previously vicious dog. In fact, Macking is lying on its back and enjoying a nice belly rub, while the blind lady is just lying there in utter confusion. A few moments later, we see an open bottle of Jack Anals on the table, implying that all the hostilities are out of the way. Tedder finally explains that he is no longer an old man, but he's back to the specially trained killer stud he used to be. The blind lady finds it difficult to wrap her head around the story, and even has to feel his face with her hands to confirm that he's not messing with her. It would only take a few more seconds for her to rip off his face if she keeps fondling it, so Peter tells her to stop. Still, she can't help herself and inspects for a little while longer. She is bamboozled by how soft his skin is and how he no longer carries around the old man's smell she's more familiar with. Pretty sure my guy is quite happy about that. After feeling his face for 30 minutes, she still doesn't understand that what he's telling her can be possible. Suddenly, she falls back on the couch with a funny demonstration, asking if that's how he died. Macking playfully imitates her as she tells Peter to explain it so she can try it out and be rejuvenated like him as well. When he doesn't respond, she gets back up and asks if the posture isn't the important factor. She keeps pestering him, suggesting that maybe the method he was attacked with is the determining factor, so she continues her interrogation, asking if he was killed with a knife, gun, or even poison. With a desperate look on her face, she asks him to explain how she has to die to get rejuvenated like him. Suddenly, a weird boil appears on her forehead, implying that Peter smacked her, so she changes the topic and asks him if he has to go to the Glory Club by himself. When Peter affirms it, she asks him how he's planning to do that, and our hero replies that he's going to get inside using the Eye of the Storm. She still doesn't understand what he's talking about, so Peter explains that he plans to become a killer for the Glory Club because they're set on catching him And that's the best way he can take down the organization from the inside. Hearing this, the blind lady opposes the idea, but soon realizes that it's actually a good plan. She points out how he has become younger, and that no one would be able to recognize him at all. He can infiltrate the organization undercover, and whatever plans they have to find him would already be in the palm of his hands. Impressed by his bold move, she pulls him by the tie and strangely starts to flirt with him. She finds him attractive because of how scary he has become. Rather than getting turned on or anything, my man just gets uncomfortable and tells her to let go of his tie because she's more scary at the moment. The flirtatious Miss Murdoch lets go of his tie and reveals that is brilliant. His plan sounds it's still impossible to pull off. That's because in order to be a member of the Glory Club, he would have to be a graduate of the Glory Orphanage. Unfortunately for him, he's no longer going by Peter, so his old certificate is now invalid, and showing that to anyone would be straight up suicide. She points out that the old Peter might be a graduate of the orphanage, but in his current form he's nothing but an outsider, even though it seems like there's no way to become a killer in the Glory Club. Peter tells her that she's wrong. In fact, he actually seems to know a solution. He's going to enroll as a student at the Glory Club's high school. And at this point, I'm not even sure what the kind of organization this club is supposed to be. How do they have an orphanage, a school, and a killer syndicate at the same time? Anyway, it doesn't take long before Peter transfers into the school, and as you'd expect, all the girls are already drooling over his handsome face and toned body. From the gossip making the rounds, we find out that Peter's new alias isn't John Wick, but Kimsu. What a shame. The name works like an aphrodisiac on the infatuated schoolgirl, while his well-defined facial features make them swoon all over him. When it's time for them to head to the auditorium, even one of the teachers tries to make advances on him. Peter isn't the least bit interested in stunners flocking around him. He's just focused on the mission he's come to accomplish at the school. He thinks about how the institution looks like your everyday high school on the outside, when in reality its sole purpose is fostering killers. What in the actual? There's even a killer intensive class operated secretly, where students are taught different ways to send a man to afterlife. Even though it's a sick system, Peter, now going as Kim, decides that he's going to enter that class since it's the only route to become one of the Glory Club killers. All the while he thinks about his plan, he's surrounded by admirers, from men, women to even felines who can't seem to get enough of him. Eventually Peter arrives at the auditorium for the girls' original ballet grand prize. He walks into the place while his wealthy blind friend communicates with him through the comms he's wearing. She reminds him that only orphanage graduates are sent to killer class and asks him if he has a way to get in. In response, Peter reveals that he has one way, an exception. It happens rarely, but you just have to get the attention of the management, and in order to do so, my man walks up to the podium and takes the mic. Macking and Miss Murdoch back home are both shocked at what he's about to do, but all they can do is listen. On the podium, Peter introduces himself as Kimsu, the new transfer student. The other students are confused because he's not supposed to be on stage, but our hero doesn't give a. He continues telling them about his love for violence and fighting, and as if that wasn't disturbing enough, Peter puts the icing on the cake and identifies himself as a killer in front of everyone. His statement leaves everyone horrified, including the two Mission Impossible spies. Back home elsewhere, we see a group of faceless people with glowing red eyes. Listening to what Peter has just said, they match the description he just gave on stage perfectly. And the fact that they're all armed with deadly weapons makes it clear that they're going to be Peter's new classmates in no time. All the teachers and other students just stare at Peter in bewilderment as he continues his introductory speech. They're finding it difficult to fathom the idea that someone's dream is to become a killer under normal conditions. He should be expelled immediately for such a statement, but since he's already used to the system and knows what goes on underground, he's confident that his plan is going to work. Meanwhile, at home, Macking and Peter's blind friend are still in shock that he would attempt such a crazy stunt just to get the attention of the other killers, as everyone stands frozen in utter shock. Peter continues his speech, claiming that he forgot to tell them one last thing. He then leans closer to the mic, telling everyone that he's going to become a killer who's good at studying, and with a cocky expression on his face, he closes the speech by telling everyone listening to take care of him while he's at their school. One of the students watching Peter's speech on the smartphone finds it funny that he thinks he can become a studious killer. On the other hand, another student chimes in, suggesting that Peter's confidence is really cool. Just then, a fat dude shoves the girl with the phone out of the way, and in a matter of moments, Peter finds himself surrounded by the guy and some other students. He notices the menacing aura they're giving off and quickly assumes that his plan has worked. He concludes that the students at the killer class have come for him, so he's delighted that he was able to lure them out the big Dude with a scar on his lips is the first to confront Peter. He addresses him as a killer and suddenly asks him if he seduced Jeden as you'd expect my man is. Confused since he has no idea what he's talking about, he asks Mr. Scarps what he's on about, but rather than giving a reasonable response, the guy starts to tear up and curses at Peter. Still confused, Peter decides to just play along, thinking that the whole drama is probably a good setup for him to show his killer fighting skills. He hopes to gain the attention of the killer class by all means, even though he's already created a very crazy first impression. The big dude looking for a fight is actually Jang Yul. For a very long time, he's been in love with only one girl, and I'm pretty sure you can guess who she is. Yep, it's Yen. They've been in a very blissful and romantic relationship for a lengthy 22 days, and don't judge him, that's actually enough time to fall helplessly in love. Jang loves Yen a lot and has even been crowned Divine Honor High School's best lover for his public display of affection toward his stunning boo. Unfortunately for him, the love of his life got stolen from him that morning by a guy named Peter. Yen was absolutely L-struck when she laid eyes on this mysterious person, and so Jang came to take revenge without further hesitation or provocation. Scar Lips charges at Peter with clenched fists, attempting to land a killer blow on him, but of course Peter is too fast for him. He swiftly dodges the hit before preparing to land a lethal right hook on Jang's face. Jang happens to be quite popular around here because he was able to conquer the whole of Mapo district with his fist. He's clearly a tough guy, and from his towering height you can tell he's not one to be messed with. However, for the first time in Jang's life, he actually senses death when he sees Peter's fist racing toward his face. As the punch is about to land, Jen closes his eyes and mentally apologizes to Yen for not being able to protect her. Peter sees his fear and decides not to land the powerful blow on him and stops his hand to instead flick Jang on the forehead. Granted, his flick also does some damage, but it's a lot better than what he initially intended. Jang falls to the ground whimpering with his swollen forehead while Peter just stands over him. Out of the blue, a teacher calls out to Peter and runs toward the scene with a red card in hand. He scolds our hero for fighting. He grabs him by the cheek like an angry mother and asks him what his father does for a living, at which Peter just replies that his father is dead, which makes the teacher feel sorry and apologetic. Regardless, he doesn't let go of that cheek and pulls Peter away, telling him to follow him as he keeps scolding him for fighting in their sacred school. Jang gets back up and yells at Peter, telling him to let go. It seems his brain hasn't left the fight yet, so another student points out that no one is holding him. Elsewhere, we see the real killer students whose faces still aren't revealed, and they're deliberating on what to do about Peter. After his little stunt, one of them suggests that they wait a little longer and find out more about him, while the other agrees with him since he finds the whole thing fun. However, another one just suggests that they kill him to end this mess. Meanwhile, at the auditorium, Peter is still being dragged away by the cheek. The teacher tells him to follow him, and Arher points out that he is already following him as he's dragged away. Some other students just watch and gossip. Some of them find the new transfer student crazy, while others think that he's in his mop phase, which they think is cool. Just then we see Miss Shortskirt from before, the girl who tried to kill Peter at the bookstore. She sees him being dragged away and is immediately horrified because she thinks that he's transferred into the school to destroy it from the inside. At lunchtime, we finally get to know that her name is Yil when our hero goes to sit beside her. Not surprisingly, she doesn't want him around her since she can more or less guess his plans, so she gets uncomfortable and asks him why he came here. Peter explains that people kept following him around and that's why he fled. Afterward, he asks her why she is sitting there. She reluctantly tells him that it's because she didn't have an appetite. Unfortunately for her, my man isn't buying that story because he notices the mountain of food stacked up on her tray. He points out that the food is quite much, but the girl just turns away from him, calling him noisy. Suddenly, she starts thinking back to the night the eight-legged man offered her to Peter as a sacrifice. She remembers how he asked her to tell the organization that the old Peter killed the people there. He told her that she would have to do it if she wanted to live, and made it clear to her that her lie would become her lifeline. The girl reminds our guy that she did as he requested and kept her promise. Afraid of the assassin, she asks him why he's come looking for her after she did her part, but Peter explains that he didn't come particularly to find her. With a mouthful of strawberries and a skeptical look on her face, she asks him if he's come to kill her now. Peter reiterates that he hasn't come looking for her, but that doesn't change the fact that she's very angry at him because of him. The organization has been monitoring her every move, so she starts lamenting to Peter. Hearing her complain, he surmises that she's not the kind of person that words easily get to. Yunel keeps complaining, so our hero tells her that she should put up with whatever she's going through. He reminds her that the only reason she's even alive and stuffing herself with food at the moment because he was kind enough to save her life despite how upset she is. The girl doesn't stop eating. She snaps at Peter, claiming that he didn't save her, that she survived on her own. Seeing the rage in her eyes, the handsome assassin finally lets go of the topic and accepts her claim. However, she doesn't stop there and continues to lambast him, telling him that he doesn't know anything about the organization. Yumul tells Peter that she has no idea how scary the place is. On top of that, she claims that he doesn't even know who she is. Her rant goes on and she tells him that he's just an outsider, claiming that he won't be able to do anything that affects the organization. Even while she was ranting, Yunul somehow managed to finish the pile of food that was on her tray, and while Peter is still moping, she gets up and starts to walk away before she can leave, though our boy tells her that she can help him shake up the organization, but she doesn't see any reason why she should. To convince her, Peter tells her that they're on the same boat because they both don't know anything, and says that he's counting on her. He calls her Yil at first, but then changes his mind and addresses her as Luna. Hearing this, the girl stops in her tracks and turns around, shocked that he knows her real name. I guess now she knows that our boy knows more than she thinks. However, when she turned around to look at him and probably ask him how he knew, Peter was already gone. The